So, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Turn 5 podcast with just myself and Ben this week, here to discuss all of the action from F1, 2, and 3 at the Hungary Grand Prix. And it's at this point you're
Spitting
gonna tell
rhymes.
me, oh, sorry, sorry, you don't want to deal with the
Bars.
smoke. Straight bars, no cap. Yeah, it was an interesting weekend as a whole. Some side story plot lines going on. Interesting Saturday. Kind of probably got everyone a little bit too excited for Sunday.
Yeah.
But let's start at the beginning with practice, where we had a reasonably dry first
Oh,
session,
the most funniest thing in the world happened in practice as well.
and then we had a bit of a wet second session. Come on, Ben, lead off.
Was it Dutch commentators?
I'm not
And
sure.
they said, I want to say it was Dutch. They're like, Ricardo's back. About 10 seconds later, cuts to Perez in a wall.
Okay, yeah. Wait, was it wet FP1 and dry FP2? I can't remember now.
I don't know. I didn't see practice, but I just know I've seen the clip on Twitter.
Full disclaimer, I didn't actually see practice either because I was doing the Barbenheimer double bill on Friday. So
I'm
I was
about to do that tomorrow.
a little bit busy. They're both really good films.
I went and watched Mission Impossible, which was
Uh,
really good as well.
that was a really good film as well. What order are you doing the Barbenheimer in?
I think I'm doing Oppenheimer first.
That's how I did it.
So.
It's a long slog. Make sure you go toilet right before.
Great.
It's 3 hours, dude.
Yeah, Batman was like 3 hours long, wasn't it?
I don't know. I didn't see that in the cinema though.
I'm pretty sure that was about 3 hours. I've seen that in the cinema. Although Mission Impossible was pretty much 3 hours. That was 2 hours 40 and something, and that flown by.
True, but I didn't have a large drink when I went to see that one.
No, I don't. With a long film, I never have a drink with me.
Oh, I was bursting at the seams by the time the credits rolled. But while they were doing that, Perez was in the wall, promptly bringing out the epic crying child shots from the cameramen.
Yeah. And he had an AlphaTauri too, top one as well, didn't he? So
Perez's future.
yeah, you couldn't rise it any better.
No, you really couldn't. But fair play to Red Bull for actually going and finding the kid and extending some paddock passes his way, and bringing him into the garage to meet Perez.
It was FP1.
FP1, yeah. Okay, so it was wet FP1, dry FP2. But they got him into the garage. He met Perez, and gave him a look at the steering wheel, and honestly, that's just really nice to see.
It's like it reminds me of the kid who
Kimi Räikkönen,
retired.
yeah. It's very similar, but at the same time, it's just nice to see these things. The human side of the sport.
There's also a tweet that said mission to get into a F1 team, bring a kid to the F1,
make it cry.
Full team wear, make him cry, and then F1 paddock tickets.
I mean, it might work.
Yeah. You'd have to be spotted on camera.
Yeah. So. And then you have to take the kid with you.
Yeah.
Can't just get the paddock pass and just leave the kid.
The kid's still there crying.
I'm just crying even more now. But yeah, I mean, we didn't really get a lot of info. We had a reduced number of sets of tires for this weekend as a trial alongside the new qualifying tire restriction format thing, whatever you want to call it, where in Q1 the drivers all had to use the hard tire, Q2 they all had to use the medium, and Q3 they all had to use the soft.
Yeah,
I thought that was quite good, actually. I quite enjoyed it because it didn't really have like in traditional qualifying, as we've come to know it now, you get the sort of the initial burst where everyone goes and sets a lap, then a bit of a lull, then maybe a second run where you get
Yeah,
more drivers on track, then another lull, and then the last second scramble. And then in sort of Q2, that sort of chops down to just 2 runs, and then Q3 is just 2 runs as well. But with
I
this,
mean,
there wasn't
there wasn't
really much of a lull.
yeah, that's a fair point. The only thing that I sort of have against it is the fact qualifying is the only sort of time really where you see the drivers use the soft tire now. Because in the
Yeah,
race, it's just pretty pointless in the fact it uses about 10 laps and then bang, it's gone.
yeah. No, I mean, I understand it
So,
from a top of the line absolute speed point of view, but I mean, you still can't. You get that in Q3. You just, I guess, you
yeah,
just don't get as much of it, especially if your driver doesn't even make it to Q3. But from a action on track point of view, I think generally there was a more consistent level over the first 2 sessions. Q3 was just Q3. That was pretty
yeah,
standard, I
that's,
think.
yeah,
Um, Q Q2 was interesting though. Forcing the drivers to use mediums when they had limited sets meant that we had implications for the race because the
yeah,
medium was going to be the preferred race tire. And I think Lando was pretty much the only driver that just
like
used one set of
one set
mediums.
and then,
So therefore had a brand new set of mediums ready for the race. Whereas even Max Verstappen had to use his second set of mediums.
yeah, it was like when his first lap time was deleted.
His
Yeah,
lap time got deleted for track limits at, I want to say it was 5.
5, yeah, around the
Um, Exit of the
wedges.
hairpin before
Yeah,
the chicane,
chicane, yeah,
the exit of the corner that Perez binned it at.
yeah,
um, which is uncharacteristic of him, really. We haven't really seen Max
like,
set many feet wrong in qualifying this year.
yeah, this is like the first time in recent races that he looked like not too far.
The Red Bull didn't look that great on 1 lap pace,
It was weird because he said after quality that the balance just wasn't there, which
but
could make sense.
we found out once again that quali pace and race pace are two very different things.
Yeah, especially for Mercedes.
Yes. I mean, fair play and full credit to Lewis Hamilton
Yeah, that was
to
the lap
put
of
in an
life.
absolutely stonking lap, 3 thousandths of a second
Yeah, it was
faster
wild.
than Max Verstappen. Could you imagine if he'd tied the time and had to start second because he'd
Yeah,
set the lap time last? That
I
would have
was
been
just
brutal.
I was just annoyed with Lando being 800ths off.
Yeah, I mean the McLarens are strong.
Yeah,
Like
like
legitimate, it wasn't a one-off. It's Silverstone fluke. Hungary is a
we know
very different circuit.
Silverstone's a very balanced track because they said if you're good at Silverstone, you should be good at most the other tracks as well.
That's what they've said. So
So
it's the combination of Silverstone's high speed, high downforce, and Hungary's low speed, because it's not really that quick in the grand scheme of
yeah, but you're still
Formula One
using the
circuits.
higher gears though.
Yeah,
That's the
it's just like if you look at it from if you did like a timed lap, like the W Series used to,
yeah,
they actually complete less laps than they would if it was just a lap count race
yeah,
because the average speed is slower because of the nature of the circuit. But the commentators are saying between the high speed, high downforce of Silverstone and the low speed downforce of Hungary, the rest of the calendar looks pretty good.
yeah. My only worry for Spa is the top end speed.
Yeah, the Mercedes
That's
power unit has been sort of known to clip.
That's what, because if it wasn't for Arouge and the massive long straight, I would be pretty confident, especially in what sector two with like no name. Is it Blanchemont or
Pouon,
Pouon?
Blanchemont's
Yeah,
sector 3.
yeah, with Pouon with the left into the right. It should be pretty strong there.
Yeah,
But,
I'm expecting to see a cheeky little Lando Norris purple sector 2 at some point in
but
qualifying.
now, has it got to the point where we're going into racing, it's expecting nothing, ain't getting something, and now we're expecting something, we're gonna
And
get
we're going to get
nothing.
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do an Alpine this weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
They Alpine struggled this weekend.
They got very unlucky though
They did get very unlucky in the race, but they weren't doing great in quali anyway.
when they were 12th and
Both out in
15th.
Q2,
Yeah.
which was they didn't really look anywhere. They weren't
So
really challenging for Q3 at any point.
uh, they've been very mixed this year. They've either
Yeah.
looked really good or like terrible.
But Alpine's always kind of been like that. That's the thing. You have
Never.
some races where they're like the second fastest car on the track, and then others when they're battling the Alpha Tauri to be the worst.
Yeah, because it was, what is it, Australia? They were both.
They were zooming
Yeah, they were close to Mercedes,
until they worked
ahead
each
of a
other out.
Ferrari, I think, maybe. And then the
So
restart happened, and obviously both
lost
DNF.
all of the points.
Yeah. Then Ocon got a podium at Monaco. Hmm.
And then
Come to Hungary,
well, come to Great
Monaco,
Britain, double
Monaco
DNF.
without walls, and then suddenly
I
12th
would
and
just like
15th
to
from both
say,
DNF.
after last week's debacle where everyone's like, "Oh, it's such a stupid saying," and it's like it is a bit daft, but they say it because of the nature of the circuit, and it took all of like 20 minutes into
Monaco is
the
Hungary with
F2
walls.
session.
That's what it should be, because Hungary had less overtakes than Monaco.
Oh
So,
my god, did it actually?
yep,
Oh my
Hungary had
god.
16, Monaco had 22. So they're actually putting Monaco down when they shouldn't be.
Damn. That's actually shocking.
Actually, I think that was Monaco last year. I'm not sure though,
I mean, still, but like, come on.
because it was wet this year, wasn't it?
So it was wet last year because that's what
Uh,
cost Max the win and Charles the win because Perez won. But I mean, back to back.
right, yeah, this year I had 22, so I had 6 more overtakes.
That's shocking. Back to back double DNFs for Alpine. I think they need a good weekend before the summer break to really like take the edge off it because they're suffering now. Like,
But yeah, their luck can't stay like that forever, can it? It will change at some point.
well, you'd hope so.
Ultimately, it's worrying for them because they've obviously fallen behind McLaren, Ferrari, and
Yeah, well, I mean,
although
then
Aston have dropped now.
yeah, but Alpine are now 40 points behind McLaren.
Yeah, but then McLaren have proved that you can literally go from the back of the grid to the top pretty much.
Yeah, but I feel like that was a long time coming in terms of they said from the outset of the season, this isn't our car.
Yeah,
Give it 6 weeks. I mean, fair enough. They actually were right in terms of the car that they were going to develop was much better. So fair play to them for actually going, you know what, we're just going to bin off the first few races. It's going to be a bit of a pain, but reward at the end of the tunnel.
yeah.
And
If only
so
we
far, it's
seen that
paying off.
back then.
Yeah, I know. Would have made the hardship slightly more easy to bear. Um, Alfa Romeo had a very mixed weekend.
Yeah, especially in, Well, practice and quality they had the pace, didn't they?
Quali was nuts. Zhou
Show
was
was
top in Q2
yeah.
and got the best qualifying result of his F1 career so far in P5.
Oh,
Bottas was P7, I think, something like that.
yes, he qualified P7.
And then Zhou decided to take a leaf out of Bottas's book and go bowling into turn one.
But not as bad though.
No, he still has a little ways to go before he becomes the master.
Yeah, he was learning from him.
But the apprentice did a good job. He managed to wipe out a whole team,
Yeah.
which, to be fair, better than Bottas managed. Bottas tried to take out both Red Bulls.
What he nearly did.
Nearly did.
He got what, like
He got 1.5.
1.5? Yeah. And a McLaren on that as well. So
But I loved Danny's interview afterwards. He was like, "It's like a welcome back tackle in the NFL. Somebody, you know, somebody's going to leave something on
let him
you.
know you're there.
Put one in early doors. Just literally turn one, lap one." I was so gutted for Danny though to get tapped like
Start
that into turn
13th, but
one.
then instantly after the first corner, dead last, mate.
I mean, out qualified his teammate on his first race
Wow.
back after like 8 months off. Um, gets sent to the back at the end of lap one, and somehow
Do you see
strategy.
he done 40 laps on the mediums.
It's nuts.
Like that's what I only seen that earlier. I think Logan done the most on the hards and he done 38 laps on the hards, I think. Something like that.
And Danny's gone longer on
Danny
a set of
done
mediums.
40 on the mediums.
That's mad. That's mad impressive. But that's probably helped him leapfrog Sonoda again.
Yeah. So obviously
Because
made
I thought it was interesting and a bit odd, to be honest, when they decided to pit him, because he was obviously a few seconds off the back after the incident. I think it was like 9 seconds off the back of the 17th runner. And then when he
yeah, because
caught
he
up,
is like
they pit
6
him.
seconds behind Sargent or something, wasn't he?
Mm.
And then they pit. So I think Ted was on. He was saying that Ricardo is going to catch Sargent, and
And
then they
then
boxed him, and he was like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
it was an early one,
So it was
but I
funny off,
think,
wasn't it?
yeah, I think they opted for the faster and clean
Clean air,
running, get the
yeah,
undercut, but like the massive undercut. We're going to go like 12 laps before you. But to be fair, it triggered a series of pit stops,
but
which is nuts. Imagine putting all that effort into making your strategy, and then because someone was like 6 seconds behind on lap one, caught you up in 12 laps, and then pit again, you're like, throw all of that out the window, pit. Like, how do you have contingencies for that? It's nuts.
yeah, it's
F1
crazy,
strategy is a world that I'd absolutely love to get an inside scoop on like how they decide to do these things on the fly.
especially Ferrari.
Look, Ferrari don't do it on the fly. We've decided this, okay? This is just fact. The drivers do it on the fly. The strategists cannot.
You see the signs behind Leclerc on softs, like right behind them on that 2 or something. Just
So
that
swap them
signs of
over.
yeah, and that signs attack Lewis or
They're
try
on
to,
they're on
and
different
then
race
when
strategies.
signs his tires go, just swap them back.
Yeah. Or
Instead,
even
you
just
let
when he
his
pits.
you let his signs get stuck behind Leclerc for Leclerc to have a 9 second pit stop and speed in the pit lane as well.
That was brilliant. So yeah, it's interesting, but I mean the Ferrari woes continued, didn't they? A 9.4 second pit stop, a
Just
five
thinking,
second time penalty for 0.7 kilometers an hour speeding in the pit lane.
you've just sort of been nowhere this year, aren't they?
Yeah.
you're expecting, especially from last year, expecting them to be the ones challenging Red Bull, and then they just
I think there's some internal restructuring that's gone on that sort of hit everything a bit.
yeah,
And I think next year, if they don't come back with a vengeance next year, then
that's
Ferrari are
getting
just
sucked.
mudded.
Yeah.
So, because you can't go from being the car that challenges for the title alongside the Red Bull to just kind of languishing at the bottom of Q3.
Yeah.
Like, Sainz didn't even make it into Q3 this week.
No, Charles knocked him out, didn't
Yeah.
he? So one of them was going.
It was what call an ambulance,
Yeah.
but not for me. It's yeah. Like and there was probably realistically an extra slot in Q3 because George didn't even make it out of Q1.
Yeah, Georgia did easily flown through to Q3.
So
He would have probably been like second or third, if not put it on pole
I mean,
like
he
he
put
did
it on
last
pole
year.
last year, so like
Exactly.
that was the big shock, wasn't it? Like,
And the car was probably worse last year.
yeah, but they just sent him out in so much traffic, and he got his pants pulled down.
Yeah.
Like watching his onboard, it's just a repeated series of people just pulling his
Yeah.
pants down.
You see
And then
Lando do it the first
Gasly's
time, and then oh, I'm
Gasly's
actually
just
like
waited until the absolute last second and then just given it the almighty full frontal.
yeah.
It's like at that point it was you knew it was gone. But oh, man, I think it was like 4 or 5 cars in the last corner. I mean, fair play. Even in the interview pen afterwards, he said, "Look, at the end of the day, the gentleman's agreement doesn't really work if everyone's just fighting for themselves. So there is not really a gentleman's
Yeah.
agreement. You're here for you
It's like
and
the
for
Hunger
your
Games,
team."
isn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Just saying I won't kill you doesn't mean you're gonna kill him.
It's like you can form an alliance, but when it comes down to the two of you, one of you's going to go in it. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So George out in Q1, Sainz out in Q2. It's just kind of meh, wasn't it? It's like neither of their performances were that great. George had a good recovery drive.
George should have been driver of the day in my eyes. But that went to Perez because he's in a Red Bull. He qualified ninth, by the way.
Yeah,
I remember
yeah,
seeing that. And
yeah.
I was so I had
Like
like
how is ninth to third driver of the day compared to
I got
18th to
caught up.
sixth?
I got caught up with Lewis putting it on pole. I'm like, where's Perez? And my mum said he's qualified ninth. I was like, ninth? He's qualified ninth. how
Yeah.
how even do you even get into Q3 and still qualify ninth?
The only car he qualified faster than was a Haas.
How? What has
He
he
got
done?
he got out qualified by two Alfa Romeos and two McLarens with a Ferrari and an Aston Martin
In the best car?
when he's in the best car on the grid.
What the
What is going on?
God, man.
Like and he said he had a strong weekend after qualifying.
He had a decent race, but he should have been
Oh my
second.
god. Yeah.
If he actually qualified well, he would have been.
Yeah.
But no, he can't qualify to save his life.
Or to save his drive.
But
We'll
he's got.
see. Give it time.
I still think he'd be in that Red Bull seat next year.
I think Danny Rick's plan is 2025 when Perez's contract runs out.
It'd be this year.
Sometimes you got to play the long game.
Although, if we need McLaren and Mercedes to actually catch up to Max, and then Perez be in real danger.
Imagine if Red Bull actually went after Norris and was like, "Do you want to come to another team?"
No, if not, if
Please
Lando
don't.
goes to Red Bull,
Please.
I will. It'd be the worst thing that happens in my life. If he goes to Red Bull, Lando's dead to me. I don't know who I support,
No, neither.
but it won't be him anymore. You know, if he gets his win, I'll say, you know, well done. But I'm not celebrating it. Unless he beats Max to the championship. And that's the only time.
God.
You anywhere but Red Bull.
I mean, by comparison of Perez's latest drives, this was actually decent. But
Yeah,
that's because his other drives have been terrible.
still not. It's still just recovery.
Yeah. When your teammate is in the same car and wins by the biggest margin of the season,
33 seconds.
and
And you're
you can't
37 seconds
even
off him.
get to second on the grid. What's occurring?
But like, what happens realistically if Perez qualified third and
Qualified.
finished third? If he qualified third and finished third, would you be like, eh.
That's mediocre, and but that's sort of what that's the minimum you'd sort of expect, really,
Yeah, but
for the
then
best car on the grid. Third to third, it's nothing special there, is it?
because he's gone from ninth to third, everyone's like, oh,
Oh
Perez.
my God.
Hope he crashes at Spa, and everyone's like, oh, break it again. I just want Perez out of the seat, and I want this whole debacle to be finished.
Yeah.
Then he can go to, I don't know, Aston Martin and take Lance's seat, which won't
Yeah, that's
happen.
gonna happen.
I don't know. He still deserves to be in F1, but not in that seat.
He's
He could
just
go to
suffering
Williams.
against
There you go. He could go to
Max.
Williams with Alex. You know, they
I mean,
can be
that would be a
happy.
decent lineup.
Red Bull can get Danny, and then Lawson can go to AlphaTauri. Everyone's happy, apart from Logan. Logan's not happy.
Logan's been yeeted.
Yeah, although there is talks of Bottas retiring this year as well, so that could also
I
open up
mean,
a spot.
yeah, it's an interesting one. Like, there's some drivers that are older on the grid, and at some point they will retire. But it's like when do they decide to? Because Lewis and Fernando are the biggest examples of this. It's like they're still good. They're old, but they're still good. They're capable of going wheel to wheel with the best of them. So do they want to retire?
No,
Fernando's
and
going to
do
be
they?
there in like 2080.
I think he might be dead at that point.
I mean, yeah, probably, but
It's in
you never know. Medical
57
progression.
years. 57 years, and he's what 41 now.
Bit of medical upkeep every now and again.
He might be driving from the retirement home.
Hip replacement surgery.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We've got some hella advanced technology at 2080. I don't quite think he's driving.
Hey, you never know, right? But
I know
still,
Lance Stroll will though.
yes, he will still be there. It'll be his team by that point.
Yeah, and then he'll have his son in that drive.
Oh my God, it'll just be a family team.
Yeah.
Oh God, that requires him actually having a son first and getting someone to actually have a son with him.
Don't know if he likes the finish or not, so who knows?
Poor Bottas. Get it, finish. Oh, I'm funny. I mean, we kind of glossed over the fact of Max's absolute dominance.
Yeah, but it's just been all year. So.
Yeah, but this was like next level. Like, he led every lap.
That was still, what was it? I think Miami. That still stands out to me.
I mean, that's
in front.
Yeah, he came from ninth and won.
Exactly. And
Perez.
his teammate was on pole.
Perez should have been taking notes. But no, like 33 seconds. leads every lap. Whenever he comes in for a pit stop, he still comes out in the lead. Nuts. That is dominance in a car.
I think we'll probably see it even worse in Spa because he went from like 14th to first last year or something stupid like that.
I'm kind of waiting for Zandvoort. I'm not gonna lie. That could be fun. Not.
Unless Max gets punted at turn one.
Yeah, true.
Which is a possibility. Especially with Stroll on the grid.
So double McLaren points again. Both
five.
McLarens in the top 5.
Again. Just.
The podium. Did you see the podium?
Yes. Yeah. I see
the
aftermath of it.
Lando's done his usual bottle smash. And the trophies jumped and then just
like
he did the same thing at Silverstone.
On Max's step as well.
It's the highest step, isn't it?
It's not using my step, I'm using his.
Yeah. But the same thing happened at Silverstone. The trophy fell off.
Went absolutely flying. Nearly went over the rail.
Could you imagine someone down below is just like, oh, trophy.
Yeah.
But thankfully, the Silverstone trophy is made of slightly sturdier stuff.
Yeah, it's made of China.
Yeah, little whoopsie there from Lando. I mean, everyone took it in good jest, but ouch for the people that actually made it.
They're making another, I think.
I wouldn't be surprised. So that'll be with Red Bull in like 4 to 6 months.
Yeah, it's just a bit of extra work for them, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
What else have they got to do for a year?
I'm sure they don't just make the trophies for the Formula One, Ben. I'm sure they actually do other things for the rest of the year.
Rest of the year, they just arms up in the air. How long we got? 6 months to make the next one.
They just start it in January,
yep.
Leave it, and then present it in July, and they're like, "Yep, 1 year's work." I mean, to be fair, apparently it costs like $400,000.
It said 40,000.
Oh, was it? I could have been really tired when I read that tweet. So that was a really expensive vase, my dude. I mean, 40K for one vase, and they made 3 of them. 4 of them, constructor's plate. That's a year's wages.
Yeah,
that would do me.
But for them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, see? Maybe that is all they do. They have to do.
They just got really good at this one thing and were just like, this is all I'm doing.
Yeah.
I mean, fair play. If that's like work for a 1 month a year and then just take the rest of the year off.
Well, it probably is a like real pain in the ass to make.
Oh yeah. I mean,
one thing we're glossing over, but that Lando smashed it. It takes them 6 months.
I'm sure some of that is just like aging it in the kiln or whatever. Yeah. Which is not quote unquote work, but it's still time it takes to make it. And if it goes wrong, then you've got to start again. So
just glue it together, mate. It's easier.
Bit of tape would be fine.
Yeah, get some blue tack on it.
Oh god. Right, let's go over predictions. I've got some good news for you. Congratulations, Ben. You won this week's podium predictions.
It would help if Perez qualified right, then I would have been spot on.
Yeah.
From qualifying. Yeah,
everyone got quali wrong though. So in last place this week is myself, Nia, and Chris, who all scored 3 points because Verstappen won.
Yeah.
We basically got like the bare minimum of points. Sonia was second with 4 points. She also put Norris third. And you won 5 points, which means You're no longer bottom of the table.
No.
You're now tied for last, but are in fourth because you have a higher scoring round. Somehow, I don't know how you've managed that. You got like a 7 point round.
Even when I have a good weekend, it's still crap points.
So you and Sonia are at the bottom on 42. Chris is on 47. Nia is on 49, and I am on 50.
So what am I? 7 points behind you? 8.
8 points behind.
Wow.
It's not terrible. You've closed the gap. Like 3 weeks ago, 3 race weeks ago, you were 11 points behind.
Oh, okay.
And you were consistently 11 points behind. Yeah, I managed to drag the lead out to 11, and then people will start closing back up again. So
Yeah, I've gone tryout mode now. So
thankfully, the dice predictions were incorrect on all fronts. So I'm very glad about that.
what were they?
Lando to finish P10 and Piastri P15.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And Merck were finishing 1 and 4. So that's fine. We can deal with that. Your bold prediction: Sonoda to beat Danny in race and quali.
Synoda's washed in these crap.
We managed to bait Chris into losing his bold prediction point.
Timmy.
Yeah, Danny didn't make it into Q3, but he was gonna make it. He made it into Q2.
Oh yeah, and I said top like 14 or whatever, wasn't he? It's 13.
And he said Q3. You're like, no.
Nice.
Nia said both AlphaTauri points. It didn't happen. And I said Danny Rick outqualifies Sergio Perez. Not quite.
It's close.
I mean, yeah, it was closer than I expected it to be honest. But lap down showdown. The first person to be lapped was Logan Sargent, who was in the pits at the time of being lapped, because I was getting ready to write down Ricardo because he had blue flags being waved for him as Verstappen closed behind. And then Sargent just popped out of the pits on the graphic, and I'm like, what? So Sargent lapped 36 and he DNF'd. So he didn't finish any laps down because he DNF'd. That's how this works. Not Chris being like, he was 1 lap down and he DNF'd, so it's 1.
It would have been 3 laps or 4 laps down.
Yeah. Oh, waiting for Chris to be like, hey, he finished over 90% of the race. He's classified. No, website says DNF. He DNF'd. He didn't make it to the finish line. He DNF'd. I don't care if it's 1 corner short. It's DNF. If you don't see that flag, I mean, yeah. If you make it to the finish line, you've finished.
Although if you rolled the car over the line now, I feel like you might get disqualified for safety or something stupid.
Probably. Them's the breaks. But that means that basically Nia won because she got the driver right. So, yeah, you were closest on laps with 34. And then everyone else got it wrong because we all said he was going to finish. Because reliability hasn't really been that bad.
Pretty much non-existent this year, hasn't it?
Give it time, I think. We're still in like the early stages of the season. It's when you start getting to penalty saga.
Halfway through the season.
Yeah, but everyone has like 3 allocations of everything, and you can just swap them out as you need to. Yeah, it's when you start getting into territories of like, do I take a grid penalty or do I put in a new engine, or do I just use this really old engine, and then the old engine goes pop?
Yeah, is it Shaw? Shaw might be in trouble, because he had to do like
all of the Ferrari power units are in trouble.
Yeah,
because the Haas ones, I think K-Mag is going to have to take a penalty at the next race, because I think he's actually out of engines. So K-Mag's going to get a penalty at some point, after he's had a few blow-ups.
Well, he had 2 at Silverstone, so
well, exactly. So let's really quickly just run through F2 and F3, and then we'll do Spa predictions featuring Chris's best set of predictions to date.
Yes.
So qualifying, Jack Doohan slapped it on pole ahead of Victor Martins and Fred Vesti. The title challenge between Fred Vesti and Teo Porcher is sort of slowly coming to the boil now. At one point this weekend, it was a 1 point lead that Vesti had over Porcher. And Porcher qualified fourth, so they were like right next to each other on the starting grid. In the sprint race, Dennis Hauger won from Ayumu Oasa and Oliver Behrman, with Porcher finishing fourth and Vessi only finishing ninth. That was when the gap came down to 1 point. And then in the feature race, Jack Doohan won for the first time since Spa last year. Fred Vesti finished second and Victor Martins finished third, with Porcher dropping down to sixth after almost coming together with his teammate Victor Martins. So I think there's going to be some stern words in the ART garage.
I've seen a ding dong battle between Crawford and Maloney for like P8.
P19. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so nuts.
I was like, what on earth's going on?
Yeah. At that point, I think it was highly unnecessary.
Yeah.
But
they just barging each other off the track fighting for P19.
It was nuts. So with those results, it means that Fred Vesti now leads by 11 points. He's on 153 ahead of Teo Porcher's 142. Ayumu Oasa is a further 10 points behind on 132. Fourth is Martins, 105. Doohan, 100. Behrman, 94. Hauger, 76. Vashaw, 76. Fittipaldi, 72. And Maloney on 66 is your top 10. Formula 3 this weekend. Quali, Zach O'Sullivan put it on pole by a whopping 0.4 of a second, which in a spec series is massive. Dino Beganovic in second and Leonardo Fornaroli in third. With the, hang on, let me just grab this real quick. With the current standings, the current championship leader of Gabriel Bortoleto, he only qualified in 9th this week. But that meant that he had a nice position on the sprint race grid. So the sprint race podium was Gabriele Mini, Bortoleto in second, and then Bedrin got a podium in third. And that was his first podium in Formula 3. He was in second for a very long time, but his tyres just went away from him. So he got caught. It was a phenomenal overtake from Bortoleto, to be fair. And then the feature race, Zach O'Sullivan won ahead of Dino Beganovic and Franco Colapinto, which means that the drivers' standings, Bortoleto retains his lead with 144 points ahead of Zach O'Sullivan in second on 101. Pepe Marti on 100, Aaron on 94, Beganovic also on 94, Colapinto on 93, Mini on 87, Goethe on 66, Fornaroli on 64, and Saucy in 53 is your top 10 there. And we have had a few like driver swap outs and lineup changes at points, but there's now a South Korean driver on the grid, and he seems to be doing all right, but he's getting up to speed. Formula 3 had a new tyre compound this week as well that was supposed to be introduced at Imola, but obviously that race didn't happen. And basically, it just means that the rear tyres degrade more significantly. So the new driver literally got thrown in at the deep end on like, here's probably the worst holding up tyre you've ever had to drive on. Have fun. But it did make for some really interesting racing because obviously they don't have pit stops, so there's no option of like managing and not taking an extra stop. It was just, if I manage a bit now, I can attack later, or I can attack now and then manage a bit later. And that meant that there were passes sort of consistently throughout, and it was just who'd managed to keep the tires in better shape throughout, and they just went on a charge. So it's some good racing. Interesting with the new spec of tire, but we'll see how that comes out in the future. This weekend we have the return to Spa, and alongside us will be F2's there, isn't it? Yeah, F2, F3 as they're all there. Everyone's coming. F2 and F3 once again. So, with that said, Ben, should we get some predictions on the board? It's a sprint weekend as well.
Oh, bollocks.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Pole, sprint winner, podium. What are we thinking, Ben?
You think?
I'm going to guess that you're going to guess Verstappen pole.
Yep.
Verstappen sprint win.
Yep.
Verstappen P1, and then honestly, I don't know what you're going to go for 2 and 3.
Paris Norris again.
Paris Norris again. Okay. Nia has gone for pole of Verstappen, sprint win of Verstappen, and she's gone the same as you. It's Paris Norris.
Oh no.
Sonia, let's load this up, has gone for pole Verstappen, sprint winner Verstappen, podium Norris, Verstappen, Hamilton.
That could come true.
She said, "I'm doing it. I'm manifesting."
Yeah.
Now, what's Chris picked, Ben?
I think he's done a Lance Stroll P1
Yeah,
pole position. You know, he's got a history of the one pole position. So, and then for the sprint, I think he said Pierre Gasly
he did.
to win a race again. Yeah. Then for the race, what does he say? Say like,
Well, I mean, I can't believe he's done it, but he said Sonoda P1.
he said Tsunoda P1. Oh Christ! I see Magnussen P2 and I thought, wow, what is he on about?
And then I saw the third step on the podium and thought, double Haas podium? What is he on?
Oh, Gunter's had a great weekend.
So, and then I'm going to go for Verstappen,
Yeah.
Verstappen, Verstappen.
I thought you meant your podium then.
Yeah, he's got 1, 2, and 3 this week.
Yeah.
No, that was pole sprint win P1.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you know what? I'm feeling adventurous. No, I'm not. I'm not.
Oh,
Norris, Perez. I'm going the other order. I'm going for the same podium as this week,
Yeah.
and I'm praying now. Bold prediction. What have you got?
I've got Sargent to get a point.
Okay. Nia said Alpha Tauri points.
But she originally said Mercedes to out qualify Ferrari.
I think we need
And
to
I
dock
said,
points in that.
I'm not having that.
Yeah, no. I am going to say both Ferraris top 6, because that's a mission for them. It shouldn't be, but it is. And then Chris has done an absolute madness.
Yeah. I thought he said Verstappen to do what he done on iRacing and just bombard someone into the hairpin.
Verstappen iRacing. There we go.
Yeah.
Lap down showdown. There's 44 laps, And Nia has said Sargent to get lapped really late in the day on 37 and finish 1 lap down. What are you going for?
Magnussen, lap 31 lap.
I'm going to go for who sort of languishes at the back these days? Bottas could just be a pit stop timing thing. 28-1. And then Chris has gone for Sergio Perez on lap 5.
Verstappen DNF.
No, because Verstappen's crashed out, so he doesn't get lapped. Sergio Perez on lap 5, and he finishes 3 laps down.
I thought he finished 43 laps down.
There we go. And that'll be the last time Chris ever forgets to send in his predictions. No, it won't. He'll forget again. He claims it's his podcast, yet forgets to actually do anything on it. This is our podcast, mate. So it was during Friday, wasn't it? Or was it Saturday morning? At some point in the race weekend, news broke that Hungary's race contract was extended. So it will be remaining on the calendar until at least 2032, which I think is one of the second longest, maybe? No, maybe. It's up there with some of the Middle Eastern races, because Qatar's till about then. I think Abu Dhabi's till like 2036 or something daft. And then obviously all of the new American ones have been given like 10-year deals as well. So yeah, but it was already going until I think it was like 2025 anyway. So they've just managed to like bolt an extension on basically. But if it can, I mean, it's good. It's great junior formula racing. It's just this year's wasn't that mad.
Shit.
We just need more bowling. So, but anyway, thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Turn 5 podcast. We will be back at the same time next week with all of our thoughts of the Belgian weekend, which will be our last one before the summer break, where I guess we'll do mid-season recap or something after that.
What is there to recap?
Max.
What do we recap?
Well, I mean, we can recap McLaren's season going way up right at the end. But yeah, we'll be back at the same time next week with more and hopefully more people. So until then, thank you for listening and or watching, and goodbye.